it's almost posted. It's like Mad Max almost. Like I've seen the homeless people having like literal gladiator fights. So yeah.
For money? Do you bet on them?
I wouldn't. It's. I mean, some people might, but if you go to get on the 101 freeway at like Gower Avenue or Cahuenga, there's like these insane homeless cities where they've graffitied all over the walls, and I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen them fighting with them. You know, so it's a very sad thing.
You said that you in our Twitter exchange, you said that you had always been or have over time leaned right.
That's correct. I mean, I was...
What's it like to be a right-leaning person in the leftishest place on earth?
Well, I mean, you'll get called a Nazi and a bigot. I mean, I used to go to the Beverly Hills freedom rallies, and thousands of people showed up to that. But I mean, would I just go wear a MAGA hat, walk in? I mean, I've done it before. Nothing really happens, but it's possible. I mean, people said nasty things, but it is possible that someone would, possibly even assault you.
Well,
but
you said the social blowback for that. I'm just wondering about like your ideology doesn't match up with the major ideology around you.
No, not at all. No.
Is that because you're rebellious, or is it because you look at the world differently? And how did you get to look at the world differently if so many people are looking at it in a different direction?
Well, how I became a somewhat conservative has to do with, I would say I'm mostly socially liberal. Okay. And on many things, but they say, a conservative is oftentimes a liberal who's been mugged, and I get mugged every tax day. Okay. Every April 15th, I get a nice, and then also when I was in college, I dealt with these woke blue-haired people that were constantly calling, because if you don't agree with them 100%, you're basically like your violent words are violent. I had communist professors who were openly Marxist. What else? Basically being told I was a piece of shit for, even ever so slightly going against the grain of what they believe. So I just wanted...
Did you go to a California university?
I did.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. I did. I went to a private school. It's called the University of Laverne. It's on the outskirts of Los Angeles County. Yeah.
Okay.
So I went there, and I did go to junior college for like 2 years before I transferred. And I mean, back in like 2012, probably 2011 to 2013, I would say I was I voted for Barack Obama the second time. I wasn't old enough to vote the first time he ran. I probably would have voted for him back then. So I voted for Obama. Okay. And, I definitely believed in a lot of the left-wing shit, whether it was on gender or, sexuality. I did believe in it, but a lot of it was everyone I knew at the time, basically at least everyone I went to school with was into that. Mm-hmm. They were all hardcore. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be on a college campus now.
Well, your cohort, your generation.
Yes.
Would you say you're young millennial, old Gen Z kind of?
30 years old. I will be 31 on May 10th. Okay. So I am a millennial through and through.
And the gender stuff was, it's peaking at the Gen Z, but it was kind of being facilitated in the millennial.
I'd say I was caught in the first wave of it.
Okay.
When I first started noticing transgender stuff, and that was once I had transferred to the University of Laverne.
What did you think about it at first?
At first I didn't really understand it, but I soon, got caught up in it, unfortunately. And
what was attractive to you about it?
It was just, I remember if you would go on I think I was going on Reddit and watching YouTube videos, and, I was just severely depressed. I was drinking alcohol and I had a really bad drug problem back then, very, pretty bad.
Any fun ones or just the really bad ones?
The drugs, I mean, I did all the fun drugs. I mean, I used to like to do ecstasy, MDMA. I used to love GHB, cocaine, ketamine, that kind of shit.
Okay.
GHB is a very popular sex drug. It's like a date rape drug. If you do too much of it, it's very dangerous. You can die. People die from GHB all the time. But yeah, I used to like cocaine. What else? I mean, pills of all kinds.
Was this in the context of being social, like a kind of a party drug, or was it kind of you coping with boredom?
It started out as a party thing. It started out that way, but then it just turned into where I used to do these drugs with people, to where I isolated myself in my bedroom, most of the time, and got high alone. So it definitely did evolve into that. And then going on the internet, onto Reddit, I think it was like the transgender subreddit, and also watching these YouTube videos of people who had gone from, in my case, it was male to female. I never really explored the other side. But, they basically made it sound like you could experience what they called gender euphoria. Okay.
So another drug.
Yeah, I mean, in order for me to experience euphoria at the time, I'd have to, get really fucked up. I'd have to do some Molly or whatever. And, so I just hated myself. I hated everything about myself. And the idea of being someone else. And also, too, I remember them saying, like, and I did believe this for a time, that, I would no longer be a homosexual male. I would be a straight woman. That's how the therapist outlined it. But I would be a heterosexual woman because I, liked men. And being gay at the time was sort of difficult for me. It wasn't, I don't know, I just never, for whatever reason, I couldn't accept it the way I should have. Because, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
What was your feelings? How did the feelings towards your homosexuality or your sexual orientation evolve over time? Like, when did you discover it? What were your feelings when you first discovered it? And then how you adapted to that?
I mean, I never had language for it when I was a little boy, but I mean, this woman who was my sister's friend used to babysit us sometimes. And she had a son who was a couple years older than me, like a year or so older than me. And this was like probably, maybe like around 2000, late 90s. We would play video games and hang out and watch TV, but we would also kind of cuddle. Like, we would like spoon cuddle at night. It's kind of I don't know, I guess it's not super traditional, but we would do that, and like we would like sit really close to each other. So that was like the first thing. And then I had another group of friends when I was even younger who we used to like, show each other's genitals to one another. So
out of curiosity, or?
Yes, I think so. And I don't know if that necessarily made me a homosexual or what. Definitely, I'm sure it didn't help. And I wish these things, I mean, the cuddling thing, I don't think there was anything super malicious about it, but it was definitely not a traditional life experience, certainly. And
but you were a kid, right? So I mean, you're
yes, I was
innocent.
Probably I was under 10 years old when these instances occurred.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been told by psychologists that little boys do that sometimes. It's not super uncommon to show, even girls do it apparently, show each other their parts, their genitalia. So, and I just remember there was this deodorant commercial a little later on in my life where it was like this man, and it just showed his physique, and I just remember it enticed me. And I mean, I remember like when I was going through puberty, trying to like almost force myself to be heterosexual, like looking at like heterosexual pornography, and it did nothing for me.
Well, and why would you not want to be a homosexual? I mean, you're in a very liberal place.
Right, but I didn't, my parents are very old. My dad's like 74 years old. My mother she's turning 70 this year. Okay. And my father is definitely not a woke dude. My mother has become more left I think she would have been okay with it, but my dad like did not want, gay kid, so I just knew that it would be unacceptable. And like my friend group of boys, like the common insult was, can I say it?
Let's just imply it. The F word.
The other F word, the other
YouTube
F
really
word.
doesn't. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the other F word.
Yeah. No,
the main
the
F
primary.
word.
Yeah, the main one you can say to your heart's content.
But the one, the FA one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, or and not that like I'm one of these people, but it was like in the early aughts, a common thing to say when you didn't like something was, "Oh, that's gay." This is gay, and I actually say that now. Like sometimes I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds gay. I don't want to do that." But when I was a kid, so I'm trying to like sort of, in some ways, I sort of almost want to reclaim those statements, but I don't think I could change my homosexuality. I really don't. Okay, some people, even on the more conservative side, think it's still a terrible thing. But I don't think, I really believe that I'm just, this is just, I just couldn't do it with, I couldn't, I like women and stuff as friends, or I respect them, admire them, but I don't think there's any way I could have a relationship where either of us is happy. So I've just accepted it, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. Nowadays, people don't care. Okay. But when I was a little kid in 7th, 8th grade, there was no trans kids back then. There was not really openly gay kids. Not in middle school. In high school, I knew of a couple. And then once I went to college, and I was studying like sociology, psychology, all those disciplines, this is like a common topic that, and it wasn't as like, when I went there, I can't even imagine what it's like today. I mean, so
you, just to construct the story like a story arc, you were wrestling with acceptance of your sexual orientation, and the gender stuff comes along and gives you an out to that?
Well, yes. And I would abuse drugs. And there's this really bizarre subgenre of pornography on the internet. They call it sissy hypnosis porn. And I did start using that, and I really never thought about changing my sex until I was spending, my weekends and my free time alone in my bedroom, abusing drugs and watching porn. When I was a little boy, I wasn't super effeminate necessarily. I was kind of scrawny, but I admired sports. Like I was good at tennis. I was never good at baseball or soccer. And not that means, that's what makes a man or a male. But I liked video games. I liked guitar music. I liked, my parents had me take, guitar and piano lessons since I was a little kid. So I never really wanted to play with the girls. I never was drawn to, I hung out with boys.
Did you
but
have
they were cruel
dysphoria?
to me.
Oh, the boys were cruel to you.
Very much so.
Okay.
And
you weren't able to adapt to the way that boys bully in the power structures.
No, I mean, boys bullied me horribly for absolutely.
For being effeminate, or for
being effeminate and kind of weak and a little different, maybe. Yeah, okay. Totally. So yeah, very bad. And then when I was like 16, I was hanging out with these kids that we were doing, at the softer drugs like marijuana, ecstasy a little bit, and they tormented me for being a virgin. And they did other things to me too. I went over it all in that, soft white underbelly interview. I went really deep into it, but they messed with me really badly and really messed up my sense of identity. And these, if I could go back and unmeet anyone in my life, it would probably be this particular one kid, because I think that not only did they introduce me to drugs, but they also bullied me in the worst way. I think that bullying had the most negative effect on my outcome of life.
Going back to this time in your life, what was attractive to you? Was there no other options to have this friend group, or what was attractive about this friend group? And not erotically
I
attractive, but like why invest yourself into them?
I don't know. The one kid lived close to me. He lived close to me. I was curious about drugs, and I just didn't know it. Like, these were the kids who I could hang out with, who had connections to these things and were also interested, at least in the little area that I was living at the time. Like, these were the boys mostly who, knew where to acquire marijuana and MDMA and stuff like that. So
And
I certainly was.
the drugs, were they, did they facilitate your creativity, or did they give you escape? Like, what's your relationship? Why
Yeah,
be into
definitely,
drugs?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I used to get high and play the guitar, the piano for hours and just love it. Listen to music. Uh, I used to write these incredible essays for college, high on Adderall. So yeah, yes, and it was also escapism. Like, I could get really, really high, and I mean, as I eventually got into like prescription painkillers and those. You don't care about anything. You just feel really loved. It's like getting it's like a hug on a cold day in a cozy blanket, and a very false feeling of safety. So yeah, I mean, it's still a struggle for me not to use drugs, or drink. Alcohol makes me psychotic too. Not psychotic, but it brings out a person that I don't like, and people
A
don't
mean
like.
person, or
Yes, very much so. I become very much like my father when I start to drink. So I tend to not do it. I don't do it anymore, but I've been completely sober from drugs and alcohol since December 18th of 2018. And ever since I did that, my mental clarity has come back. And that's how I figured with the transition thing. Like, it was just sort of like, wait a minute, what have I done? So, but yeah, if I was still doing speed basically, and all these other drugs on a daily basis, God only knows what I'd be up to. I mean, I'd probably be dead, or I'd be living in a tent somewhere around here.
or
It's
you might be
entirely
a
possible.
multimillionaire.
That's
you might.
possible too. That's possible. I mean, I'm not doing bad for myself certainly, but that's possible. I mean, a lot of very successful people use drugs, especially Adderall.
Zoom.
So, yeah.
So the onboarding for you for planting the thoughts of being, as your therapist put it, a heterosexual woman was pornography, and
Yeah.
that's connected to drugs and stuff, which seems kind of rather hedonistic relationship with drugs. You're in it for the experience, and pornography is just like you're just kind of getting out of your head and into your body, and
Sure.
and did that begin to give you a sense of dysphoria? Did you have any dysphoria? Did you ever like look in the mirror and say, that's not who I am? Or
I think I started to, but not the way that from transgender. Like, I never ever had any desire to have my genitals, mutilated. I see it as I can't even it would be very difficult for me to look at a picture of it, like an open vagina, even back then. It's just not, I like boobs. I don't really want it, like if, Kendall Jenner was butt naked on the floor right there, I would just get a sheet and just throw it over her, so I wouldn't, be impressed or whatever. It wouldn't do anything for me. So no, I don't think I ever had the gender dysphoria that, I mean, I kind of don't like I was never really hairy. I was never into having I never wanted to have like a beard or anything. I did have all my body hair removed. But I never had the traditional, that I should be, a girl, I never, but I started to have actual gender dysphoria when I had transitioned, and I was, doing the whole, woman thing. I was going
presenting.
around. Yeah, I did. I wore makeup. I had long hair, whatever.
And
but I would go.
That wasn't to manifest an erotic ideal of the woman. Like, why become a woman? What's the process of that? What's the attraction to that, or the
I
manifestation?
really don't. I think I admired women. I do admire. I was always interested in like women's runway fashions and stuff like that. I always preferred to. I would watch the men's too or follow it, but the women's was much more appealing. It's much more interesting. And people care a lot more about the women's rather. But no, I remember going places and, like a coffee place or fast food or takeout food where they'd be like, can I get a name for your order? And I would just feel like silly, like saying Brianna. It just didn't seem right. It didn't seem, I just wanted to say, Brian. And after a while, I think that was dysphoria. Like, why am I wearing these clothing? Like, why am I doing this?
Well, why did you start doing it?
I honestly don't think I ever would have done it. I think I would have gotten, I definitely do think like the pornography and the drug abuse, I would have continued with that for a while until it no longer worked for me. But the gender therapist I saw, she told me that I am a woman, that I am, like, if we did brain scans, that, my brain would be the same as hers, or like the same, functioning.
Yeah.
And that, she, like, the little building it was in, it had like these bathrooms where, you needed a key. And at the end, I remember I looked like a man at the time, more manly than I look now, of course, but she gave me the key for the woman's toilet. It's okay. And she also told me, I kind of wanted to kill myself back then. I don't know if I really would have done it, but I certainly had.
You're right.
Thought.
Thinking about it, you really were fed up with life.
At the time, certainly, I seriously considered it. And I told her about this, and she goes, oh, well, this is your gender dysphoria. And this is your, it's manifesting into this and in your drug abuse. So if you transition and live your life as a woman and and she would always tell me the hormone therapy would make me feel better. And like, she literally injected the first dose of estradiol into me. She was very inappropriate with me. She was my friend on Facebook, which therapists are not supposed to do.
Well, so let's just back up. How did you get connected to? Well, so what's your relationship to therapy from your teens on? When did you first? I started
going to therapy. My mom occasionally would send me to some, but I was never super into it. I've definitely over my lifespan seen several therapists, and I have psychiatrists too. I go to see a therapist now, but she's completely objective and she has no ideological stance on gender. She's from Iran. I can barely even pronounce her name. So she's not bought into this woke shit.
So what was therapy to you over the course of your teens and your early 20s? Like when you started to go to it voluntarily, what were you seeking from
I was just trying to figure out like what's wrong with me. I always thought there was something really, really wrong with me. And I have some depression, but I'm not, I'm not I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not bipolar. I'm not, I thought for a while within the last year I had borderline personality disorder, but my psychologist and my psychiatrist said I don't. So other than like depression and like occasional anxiety, I'm somewhat, well
functioning.
Adjusted. Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Sorry. Okay. I just wanted to see how much. But anyway, yeah. So I saw a really good therapist before I went to go see this gender therapist lady, but I feel like she would not have, told me to go down this transgender road. But I literally, the gender therapist, I found her through YouTube. She has a YouTube channel. I can send it to you if you want. It's still up.
Okay.
So
you're just scrolling through the YouTube. I'm just trying to figure out like the transition into transition. So you're watching, you're engaging with drugs and pornography, and YouTube's right there, and you're just acting out your curiosity, and you stumble into, I guess Reddit is giving you these ideas and
Reddit
stuff.
Too. But the first seed was planted by the pornography, and then I ventured into YouTube and Reddit. Okay, and so I eventually, like, you start watching YouTube videos, and it's like the algorithm it recommends. So eventually I found this gender therapist lady and I clicked on it, and she has these videos. They're really sick and really disturbing now that I watch them. But
How did
there's
they
a
work for you
couple.
when you first found them? Like,
I was like, oh, well, this might be my solution. And I found out that she lived somewhat locally to where I was living at the time, less than an hour drive away. So I went to go see this woman. And, you know, I know that I would never have gone through the trend. If I had gone to see the psychologist, the lady I see now is a clinical psychologist. Had I gone and saw her, she would not have pressured me to put me on the hormone therapy and all that stuff. So, yeah.
so were you really impressionable, or did you want to transition? Was she giving you an answer or an out to your depression, and you thought that
I think it
transition,
was, yeah.
you could fit into the world better and be more
And it was just
productive?
manifesting. It was just manifesting into the pornography. So basically, in a way, I sort of let a sex fetish take over my life. That the sex fetish, ever since I quit doing like speed, really, I have no interest in it. Like, that's why it was just silly for me to sit over there and do my makeup every morning before work. I started to feel the real gender dysphoria after I had changed, because I couldn't be myself when I was doing the whole woman phase, whatever you want to call it. I could not be myself. I couldn't, like, I can make people laugh pretty easily, and I just couldn't, like, fuck with people, or not. I mean, not fuck with people, but like sort of, just kind of. I couldn't do it because, just for one thing, I talked with this really contrived voice, and I just always had to pretend that I was just being something that I was not. Like, I would hang out with women sometimes, and they would start talking about their womanly shit, and I couldn't even follow. I was like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, it just wasn't me. Like, I can sit here with dudes in a room of dudes and we can talk about whatever. All right. And I hang out with women all the time, but there's definitely the experience that they have had in life is a polar opposite from mine. So I will never understand what it means to be a woman. Okay. Even though I had their hormones rushing through my body for a while, I still don't understand it. I don't understand.
Well, so transition can mean a lot of different things. There's social transition, hormonal transition, and then operative gender reassignment surgery.
Wow, you're very well versed in this. You're very well versed in this.
So where did you start? You're like, well, I'm going to start. Did your gender therapist, so-called, have you? What's it called? Just live as a woman first to try it out?
Nope. I mean, all right, if you get bored later, or so, a lot of people don't believe this, but if you get bored, just Google. There's two things you should Google: gender therapist, Westwood Boulevard, Los Angeles, because for some reason they're all on Westwood Boulevard.
Huh.
I don't know why. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And also Gender Clinic Buena Park. It's a little town in Orange County by Knott's Berry Farm. There's a gender clinic there. And also the LA LGBT Center will do it. They do it very poorly. Also, I mean, Google the hormone stuff. They'll get you. That's the one. I think that's the one that I'm against the most, because you can go in there and they'll give you it's like a Zoom call with like 45 other people, and you'll get like all these different referrals for like surgeries and hormone. I mean, they have a doctor's office there. It's so I mean, a lot of people don't believe it, but it's 100%
so this is just
true.
At some point in the history of Los Angeles or the greater Los Angeles area, the plastic surgery industry kind of morphed into the gender affirmation industry.
100%. I mean, if you have Medi-Cal insurance, in order to be on Medi-Cal, you have to make less than, I think, like $18,000 a year, which I don't know how anyone could survive in. I mean, a really crappy apartment over here is about $2,200. So anyway, so they will pay for this. Mind you, the plastic surgeons who do it for the insurance companies are not the good plastic surgeons. The guy who does it in Beverly Hills, I won't say his name, but his nickname is the Butcher of Beverly Hills. And these hormone clinics, the ones that they're not the good ones. I went to the good ones that I paid cash for, like the one in Buena Park, the one in Marina Del Rey. So yeah, if you don't believe it, just Google it. And there's one, I won't say her name for legal reasons, but the one gender therapist on Westwood Boulevard, she like basically on her website basically promises you'll get the, you know, all the letters you need after one visit. I'll send you her website if you want some sick shit, I think. And look, I do believe that there are transgender people. I do believe, I think it's extremely rare. But there are some people who, I think it's extremely rare, but I think there are some people who are born the wrong sex. I think that it does exist. But what we're seeing now, I would classify it more as like a social contagion type thing. And I don't know. I think in 5 years, stories like mine are going to become much more common.
They are, they're popping up, and I'm following them. So your conversation with your relationship with your gender therapist, how long did that last? When did the hormones start? So she had you on hormones before social transition.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did she say the hormones would do for you? Like unlock your true self?
No. She said it would make me feel better. It would make me feel better. It would help with my depression. And, you know, she also hosted these transgender support groups that she would have me come to, where I was still, you know, looking like living as a man. And she would go, she's a licensed clinical social worker, but she would go around and inject people with their hormones, which definitely
sounds like a religious ceremony.
It was very cult like. After detransitioning, so to speak, I feel like not only have I left a cult, but I feel like I literally lived out an episode of The Twilight Zone. Okay, like I said in the Soft White Underbelly thing, Rod Serling could, if he came to the future and they could do it. You know, I could hear it just like me going into work at such and such address. There exists, you know, here's Brian, but in the Twilight Zone, he's known as Brianna. Okay. And everyone buys into it. Everyone bought into it, basically, right? You know,
no friction.
Not really. I mean, some of my family members and stuff, but if I went to a deli or a supermarket, it was, you know, especially in LA. Yeah.
So before the cognitive dissonance began to become too heavy for you, the first steps, the hormones, how did they feel? The dressing up as a woman, did you get some sort of euphoria out of that?
A little bit. There was sort of like a rush to it, maybe, but not. I mean, I've experienced euphoria on drugs, and that's a different thing. It's a very temporary, very false sense of euphoria, but no, not really. I mean,
what did the estrogen do for you that make you feel
all it did
chill?
For me is it sort of like got rid of my body hair a little bit. It helped with it. And I also had laser hair removal and electrolysis done. And it just made my skin really smooth. I was always kind of like interested in skins, like having nice skin. You know, I always took good care of myself. And I guess it made that, but did it make me, I mean, it didn't solve
change the way that you thought?
I think a little bit. I mean, the only thing it did for me was it eliminated my sex drive. I had no interest in it. I mean, none for at least the first couple of years. You
were on the androgen blockers too?
After a while, I didn't need it anymore. But yeah, I did take the anti-androgen, correct. I took that for probably 2 years, maybe longer. And that's a horrible medication to take. It's a diuretic. It makes you pee constantly. It causes depression. I know that my depression got worse. It was hard for me to go to the gym. It was hard for me to exercise. I didn't want to socialize, really. I just became like a really uptight person where, you know, it was not a good thing for me. And I mean, my mom sort of went along with it and she helped me with it just because she was so worried about me like killing myself. And she knew I was abusing drugs. She knew. Okay. And my mom even spoke to that gender therapist lady and she was like, do you want to have a dead son or an alive daughter? That's what they say. Mm-hmm. So I feel horrible for everything I put my mother really through. And, you know, I'm just trying to, I don't know, sort of repent for, not necessarily repent, but for a while I lived in a house where it was only for women to help with sobriety. It's called a sober living. I lived in one for about 6 months with all women, which I shouldn't have done. You know, I used to use the women's bathroom, the women's locker room. I mean, part of my waking up from this too was I was at Gold's Gym in Hollywood, and there's a little like thing before on one side is the women's locker room and on the other side is the men's, and I could like smell the men. I could like smell, and I was just like, that's where I need to be. And then I had to go into the fucking women's locker room and see like these saggy tits and stuff, and I never should have been in there. I never ever should have gone into the women's locker room. I mean, it is just completely inappropriate. So, yeah. So the reason I wanted to do the soft white underbelly interview was because, for one thing, I knew he was the only one at that time who would. I mean, he interviews basically untouchable people. So, and this is a somewhat taboo topic, but I just hope that some people will see that interview before they, decide to go and get hormone therapy or decide to do a transition without really thinking about it first and really going to see like a good therapist. Because I wouldn't recommend people to go to see a gender therapist. But I mean, it's my understanding too that now the APA, it's basically all therapists are just supposed to affirm if someone comes. Like if you were to go as a goof and just say like, I want to become a woman, or something like, okay, well here's a gender clinic, so that's certainly disturbing to me. But I am just I worry about my niece and nephew. Luckily they go to a private school, but it's just really sad to me to see what this movement has become.
When did you decide to become sober, and what initiated that?
Okay. In order for me to have a good career and be successful in life, I had to be sober from drugs and alcohol. All right. And the drugs were not working for me anymore. I could not get high, really. I was having physical side effects. So I decided to go to a rehab facility. All right. And it took a couple tries, actually. All right. And I knew that once I got sober, that I could have a good life on paper. On paper, I'm the shit. I have no felonies, anything. I have a good career. I have a nice lifestyle, very nice lifestyle. So, in Alcoholics Anonymous, which I do, sort of subscribe to, I've had issues with that too, because they're so woke over here. But you have to find a higher power. And I'm not saying it's okay. My higher power is success. Upward mobility. I do believe in God and Jesus. I like that whole thing. Wouldn't say I'm a diehard Christian or anything, but I like the whole thing. Okay. But what keeps me from going back to doing drugs? Also, this fentanyl shit scares me. Fentanyl wasn't really around the way it was when I was getting high in 20. I had started hearing about it, but the way it's in everything now, like you can get ecstasy pills. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. Upward mobility. All right. So, and being a successful person, that if I was to get high all day, I just get too into it and I don't want to leave my bedroom. I won't shower for days at a time, sometimes depending on what I'm into, what I'm up to. And it's just not a sustainable lifestyle.
Was there, like you watched a Jordan Peterson video or something? And I asked that, like, what was the initiation to like say, well, no, I want to be successful? Like when did your ambition come back or punch
Jordan Peterson? Jordan Peterson was definitely a part of it. I started listening to Joe Rogan, and he had on, I would say that was the beginning to my actual red pilling, shall we say. He had on like Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes. He had on, I really admire Deborah So, I think she's a sexologist.
Sexologist.
And once I heard her views on gender and stuff, it really definitely changed the way. And also paying taxes too was definitely like the amount of money I'm paying in taxes was really no, I'm in one of the worst tax brackets. All right. So
oh man.
So yeah, that started to, and also I just didn't like the Democratic Party. I didn't, because with the woke gender ideology, who you are dictates what you do and what you believe. So if you're a transgender woman, you have to be on board with all this woke shit. All right. And I didn't believe in a lot of that stuff, and I was chastised and basically called a Nazi and all this other shit. So, and I did not like that. I think that, and you know, I am still gay, but I would consider myself more conservative leaning, more right leaning, not fascist or anything or Hitler shit, but I'm definitely more, I'm a registered Republican. Okay. So I voted, you know.
So you got your April 15th, like, kicked to the nuts. That's one thing. Yes. But what happened is that, I'm just trying to reconstruct. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but it seems like there was something that was introduced into your media environment, right, into what you're consuming, that was a little bit more stimulating, a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more, mind-based and thinking about the future, thinking about, you know, time and all these issues, you know, like this, you know, like Rogan and Peterson, all these, and so, like, all these people. So you
Dave
start
Chappelle
to,
too.
and Chappelle. So you start to, in your media environment, something starts to wake you up, or say, like, what are you doing? You're just being a hedonist. You're just running a loop of biology,
Yes.
and you want something more. You're like, well, wait, I'm more than my biology. I'm more than just something
different.
consumes.
And I wanted to I just wanted to, you know, I would look at picture. I have all of my yearbooks from elementary school. And I remember one evening, when I wasn't going into work because of the COVID thing, I took from kindergarten to high school, and I found my picture in it. And I just wanted to, like, forgive that person, and that, you know, I never did anything wrong, and there was nothing wrong with me, really. There was no other, I think it was other people that had the problem, and it wasn't me. And so when I saw the pictures of me in the yearbook, it was just, I didn't want to, you know, my name, Brian, you know, the Brianna thing was just, I found it to be absurd, and it just wasn't who I am. This is not what I was meant to be. You know, even though I have some, you know, slightly, I wouldn't say I'm even super, I know gay men who are 1,000 times more feminine than I am. But I think that there was no reason for me to ever change genders. Of all the things I regret in life, and I regret certainly a lot, the transgender, the gender transition, and the drug abuse are the number two that I regret. So, yeah, I just have learned to love myself, I guess, and to forgive myself. And I forgive the people who harm me too. So, yeah, basically.
When you, so you became sober first, and then you detransitioned, is that the...
Correct. I've only detransitioned within the last couple months.
What does that entail?
I mean, like I said in the soft white underblood thing, it was just a haircut and buying some new clothes. I love shopping anyway, so, you know.
Did you have any adverse reactions to being reintroduced to your natural endocrine systems functioning?
Yes. I have to go see a urologist on. Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm having a urological issue. It should be okay. But yeah, because, okay, my male system was turned off for years. I had no testosterone, and it atrophied and went back into me. So now that I have testosterone again, I'm having some issues. Yes. So yeah, the Thursday, 5 days from now, I'm going to see a urologist, and I've been in pain. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes. It's not, to mess with your body's chemistry it's certainly not a good idea.
And what about the psychological or emotional impact of having testosterone active in your system again?
I mean, I have more energy.
Culture shock, or?
No, not really. It's it's like an old friend, you know. It's like I don't know. I just, you know, I feel alive again. Yeah, I just feel like a human being.
Huh. Did I disappear?
No, my mother sent me a text message.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's Easter. I'm gonna go see my family after this. Go do a little Easter egg hunt with my niece. Yeah, I mean, literally, my sister saw that soft white underbelly video. I think my mom sent it to her, but we were kind of distant. We hadn't really, she was never really on board with the whole transgender thing. But she texts me saying how she's proud of her brother and how, this is the man this is the person that I want to be the uncle of my kids and my friend and my brother. She said something really, it was like the nicest thing she's ever said to me. So, and other people I know, I made sure that basically everyone I work with that matters to me saw it, just in case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Go ahead.
So while you say that you have forgiven the people who harmed you, you still take umbrage with the industry that is so easily offering transition to vulnerable individuals.
Yes. I mean, I don't think that it's a great thing what it's turned into. And I do believe that the medical industry is profiteering from it, having lifelong customers of their hormones. Insurances are in California, and health insurance companies have to pay for this shit. They have to pay for everything. Basically, so some are more difficult to do, but if you have Medi-Cal, they'll pay for everything. They're not going to be the best doctors. I've seen a lot of them that have that facial feminization thing, and they have this giant scar, and it just doesn't look good. But nonetheless, these plastic surgeons, endocrinologists, and various other medical professionals, I do think it's wrong. I don't hate anybody. And I have a couple people I still know from the transgender world that still want to be my friend. A couple. One has, ever since I detransitioned, basically doesn't want anything to do with me, which is fine because this person wasn't not a healthy person to be around.
And you lost some friends not because you spoke out, or you're speaking out now with this interview in the Soft White Underbelly, but just the fact of detransitioning makes you a pariah or makes you an embarrassment?
This particular person doesn't even, I don't think, ever watched anything, knows of anything I did. This individual got upset with me over the Leah Thomas, the transgender swimmer. All I asked this person to do was watch the race. I sent this person a video of the race. That's it. And flipped out. Just the race, just the one race where this swimmer is just annihilating. This was back in probably February, before the big, really controversial one I sent, because we had sort of brought it up, and it just sent me the shit oh, you don't think trans women are women, and I think there are transgender people, but I don't think you should be able to invade a category like that. For example, last night I had the displeasure of eating at a vegan restaurant. All right, and hold on. Okay. On the menu, they had a thing where it says proteins, and a lot of the proteins, it was Mexican style, so it would be jackfruit, in quotations, carnitas, or such and such, carne asada. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So even the woke vegan restaurant, it wasn't my idea to eat at this restaurant, the family members of mine, but they acknowledge that the jackfruit is not pork, and the soy glutamate, or whatever it's made from, God only knows, is not beef. So but that doesn't mean that someone can't necessarily identify as something, but it doesn't mean you are that. Because in the transgender ideology, Rachel Levine, you know who Rachel Levine, the Secretary of Health, I think?
The undersecretary. She's second in command to something.
Correct. All right, so there is no difference between her and Beyonce Knowles when she was 9 months pregnant with twins. They're the same thing, and I think that's absurd. Right? So.
We're supposed to, that's the party line. That is the party line.
I know a lot of women don't like this, and it doesn't mean they're transphobic, but they just don't want, I think it means something to be a woman. And I don't know, I just feel, and a man too. I'm gay, and as a gay man, according to their ideology, I'm supposed to just be down to eat a pussy. Like a man.
Man's pussy,
Trans.
though. It's a man's pussy, though.
I'm not doing that. But that's according to them, that's a transphobic thing to say. But if someone wants to identify as transgender, I'm not gonna like misgender someone on purpose. I wouldn't do that. I'm polite. The they thing, I don't know about that, but or if someone asked me to call them Zim and Zer, I wouldn't do that. If someone asked me to do they, I would just call this person by their first name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm polite. I think you should have the right to do what you want to do. Like if you want to tattoo your body blue, I don't want it to be illegal, but I don't want to pay for it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you were to show up on a high school campus, somebody invited you to give a talk, to just give a full story, give all the sides of the transness. And it happened to be the case that somebody just like you was listening to you, somebody 16, or, before even the transgender thing even came in their head. Like, what would you have to say to that boy, that young man, to keep him honest with himself or honest with the world, or what do you think he needs to hear?
He needs to hear that this is something that can fuck you up for life. I'm probably going to have I'll never be able to have children, naturally, highly doubt it. That there's a concept. So before you just don't rush into this. That would be my advice to anyone, is to not rush into, because this changing your gender is not like, buying a new car. It's not like, shaving your head. Potentially, had I had a vaginoplasty, I might have committed suicide or something. So to really look at yourself, to really just figure out who you are as a person and what happened to you. Were you traumatized? Were you, abused? Because, when I was a kid, every, experience I had was non-traditional. And I didn't really know that. I thought that this is just how people lived. The first time I had sex was very non-traditional. It was statutory rape. I was taken advantage by someone. So you need to really figure out who you are and what you're about before you go on and makes a decision that could impact you for the rest of your life. And some people it'll be a good thing for. I do believe that. I do believe that there are, like I said, I do believe there are transgender people. I think it actually exists, but I don't think it's what we're seeing today. So to a young man, to just figure out who you are. Don't go to a gender therapist. Go to just try to find a therapist who maybe like an older person, definitely a PhD or a PsyD. Don't go, and maybe a psychiatrist too. And maybe do that for at least 6 months to a year before you actually, and then try it. I would say try living as a woman without hormone therapy. You don't have to go all out, but I don't know. But I just feel like society is doing the exact opposite, especially here in Southern California.
So since you've detransitioned, are you able to fuck with people now again? Is that is that back on the table?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm pretty good at making people laugh.
How's your relationship to society changed, or just general?
I love it. I'll go to the coffee shop. Who's it for Brian? And I'll go clothes shopping to the men's department. I don't feel like everyone's like, oh, is this a transgender? So I feel much more comfortable. If I have to meeting someone was always stressful for me. Because they know, people know. People know when they're usually dealing with someone who is transgender. It's not, most people can figure it out. So yeah, I would say my sense of humor has come back. My drives, my interests have been put back online. So.
And you're going to be able to be more successful so that next April 15th, you might be so successful that you don't have to pay taxes anymore.
That's the plan. That's if I open my own company, that could be possible.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I moved down to Newport Beach. You know, I'll still get fucked by the cop, but they're not all woke down there. You know, there's a beautiful beach. It's clean. The cops will come if you call them. There's no street watch LA.
You're freaking fascist. You just want a clean society.
I would like a nice place to live, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan, yeah. So, yeah. And I really hope to help someone with these, just by sharing my experience with the transgender world, or my transgender experience, which some people do not want shared. But I'm sorry, but this is my life and this is what happened to me. And I really don't want it to happen to anyone else. I just don't. But
unnecessarily.
Yes. Unnecessarily. Yes. So, but luckily my detransition, I think once I get the urological thing fixed, I'll be okay. My parts are all there, you know. I don't really want to have body hair anyway, so I can certainly live with that.
You don't have to have body hair,
right?
That's not like an extreme thing to know.
Right? I don't think it's not. I don't think it's an extreme. It doesn't make me a woman to like to watch, you know, the Chanel runway. You know, doesn't.
You got style. You got class.
Yeah, but I don't like.
I need to gender that.
You know, but I don't even think I've ever seen a chick flick. You know, I've never.
Really, not even a Matthew McConaughey one.
I think I've seen Legally
Blonde. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days?
Never seen it. I've seen Legally Blonde, and my sister was watching it when I was a child.
Mamma Mia?
Never seen it. Never seen it.
Okay. Sex in the City 3?
All right, I have watched the Sex in the City show. Okay. But my three favorite movies that I've been watching, I like American Psycho, I like Fight Club, I like The Silence of the Lambs, No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, Goodfellas, The Sopranos. I like that kind of shit, you know? So I don't know. I like to, you know, wear a suit and stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, oh well, but it looks good for me, you know? So
I'm happy to hear that, Brian. And
thank you.
You know, thank you for allowing me to pick your brain and hear about your life. It was
totally.
You're a cool cat.
Thank you. I like to think so. Yeah, people like me. People like me. I'm a likable guy, you know. But so yeah, people just like me. I don't have a lot of enemies, except for maybe some blue-haired trans people might not like me anymore. But it's a write-off. You know?
Is it a write-off? There we go. Keep it in the tax theme.
All right. Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Have a happy Easter.
Okay? Yeah, you too. Happy Easter.